we get inundated day in and day out thinking about working on how to eliminate and eradicate COVID and how to serve our neighbors and everyone. It's so important to take time to anchor into other things. There is beauty in the world, so it's really important to find that. I see a few other ones are coming in here. I love this. Promoting and advocating for a universal basic income. I love that. Part of the Yang Gang in the US, if you're in, but I see you're in the UK. Another one is learning to sing and dance via online lessons. That's so cool. It gets your body moving. This is so important. So one of the pieces, and I'll introduce myself in a minute, but outside of working on COVID, I spend a lot of time supporting startups. And one of the things that we really combat is like burnout. You're going at it day in and day out. It's like hustle harder, get stuff done is part of the mantra of being here. But if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be in it for the long haul. And we really, as we know over the past year, it's important to make sure that you have a way and an outlet to restore your energy and make sure that you have a mental break, a physical break from doing the really important work of helping to eradicate and eliminate COVID. Another great one is online courses. I've taken a few. I personally beefed up on my Google Analytics skills through COVID, which is great timing because if you're not familiar with Google Analytics, they released a new version of it from their previous one to monitor website traffic on websites. That was a fun thing for me to learn. Katie, I love it. You go to the beach for a walk, even in the winter. I love the beach in the winter. Well, we got a few more people. Give a few more minutes as individuals join. But yeah, as you're coming in, I hope you take note of some of the activities and things individuals have done over the past year, and maybe can incorporate that into your day-to-day life. And we're going to be talking about grassroots organizing today and how to do it, the importance of it. We're going to hear from some wins from the group and what individual some successes, and also probably some challenges that we've all faced. So finding the outlet for you to not think about organizing and not think about advocating for the eradication and elimination of COVID is really important. So let's see here. It's been about 4 minutes. Sarah and team, how are we looking on everybody joining?
There's no more waiting room, so people can everyone's
People
here.
are joining. Great. Yeah, 3 kids under 8 with virtual schooling at home. I understand that. I have a 16-month-old, and it is challenging to find time. I don't have 3 kids, but it definitely is challenging to find alone time. But even those 15 minutes to potentially do a little meditation routine can really help and center yourself, especially when we get push notifications on our phones and we're on our computers all day. Finding ways to unplug is really important, and it'll make you stronger. So it's the idea of take care of yourself so then that you can take care of others is really important through organizing. Thank you all for sharing the ways that you've incorporated new self-care routines throughout the past year, and I really hope that you keep it up. So as I said, my name is Seifer Gresham. I am previous CEO at SeedSpot, which is an early stage social impact incubator. We help entrepreneurs go from back of the napkin idea to scaling up. Over the past year, I myself have been navigating a lot of new paradigms and having to shift everything and really evaluate what my priorities are in life. And to share something really vulnerable with everybody here today, which I hope really again breaks the ice, is my dad over the past year was diagnosed with late stage cancer, and he's because of that he's very vulnerable, and that has really lit a fire into me to say what more can I be doing to ensure his safety, but then also all the safety of all the individuals that in the treatment centers that he's going to. And that's my personal why. So being here and talking about grassroots organizing is an honor to be here, and know that it's a lot of work, but it's really important work. So today we're going to be talking about community organizer training. And in my, I guess to finish a quick intro of myself, I've led community-based organization. SeedSpot expanded from just operating in Arizona and Phoenix to being a national organization serving thousands of entrepreneurs on an annual basis. Additionally, I helped Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids launch all of their digital advocacy to combat tobacco companies on a global and national basis, which eventually led to the FDA regulating tobacco products. And that was all through community action. So really excited here to share some of the community action pieces that I've learned through SeedSpot, through Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. And then also I was an early member of a Razoo.com crowdfunding platform that's now rebranded to Mighty Cause, which was all about how individuals can make action in their community through crowdfunding. So that was utilizing technology to make change. But I want to anchor into COVID. So together, this is kind of our North Star. Together, we can eradicate COVID-19 and move to a new and better normal. And to do this, we have to start where you are, and we have to use what you have and do what you can. And this is really important in all community organizing. There's a lot of this, well, I wish I had this. I wish I had this. Guess what? You have the tools to move an idea forward, to motivate one other individual, to motivate an organization, to change your neighborhood community, to make a better world. And so here's kind of the guiding light, and this is from Zero COVID Alliance, a new toolkit that will be coming out any day now. And it really doubles down on that guiding light that everyone can do something to eliminate COVID-19 and help their community reach CovidZero. And that means 0 positive cases, 0 hospitalizations, and 0 deaths. That's what we're going to be talking about today. How can everyone do something? And what are the avenues that we can take and empower others in our communities to do that, to take action? So on our agenda today is a high-level grassroots strategy, just give you a baseline of what grassroots organizing is, at a key 6-step plan on where to start, and then some more resources that we've all put together through this conference, through Zero COVID Alliance, through In Coronavirus, through CovidZero, to actually make sure that you have the resources you need to change your community. And also know that you're not here alone. And I think that's what's so great about this conference, just an aside, is that, there's been hundreds of individuals joining each session. And that just demonstrates that, like, we're not alone. And there's something really comforting that I take in that, because we have to, like, band together, and we can't go it alone. There's the saying, there's this saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And to get where we need to go, we have to go far and influence the world. We'll wrap up with some questions and answers at the end. And I just want to call out that we have a set of great organizers on the call from In Coronavirus, and they're going to pop in and probably answer some questions as we have them. As you have questions, feel free to pop it in the chat. And then there's going to be other times where we can come off mute and actually talk and ask questions verbally. So this is going to be an interactive session for the rest of it. So get out your pen and paper, have notes ready, however you want to take notes. So anchoring in, why grassroots? So grassroots organizing is the idea that individuals, when they come together, can sway and make movements happen and sway policy, change industry, and change a community for the better. And it's great because it's adaptive to many different situations. It by having many individuals join together around a singular cause, it creates social proof, and that's really important. Social proof demonstrates that others can believe in it. Um, it also is adaptive to local communities, and so local communities support local communities. So there's uh, I think Briggs is on the call here, from Tucson, Arizona. Tucson faces many different barriers, which are different than Phoenix, Arizona, just an hour, 90 minutes up the road. Um, and it's through Briggs's organizing that she's able to adapt different concepts to meet the local community. Lastly, uh, grassroots organizing is really important because individuals, groups, leaders can all get involved. So this is depending on individuals' time frame, how much time they have, their skill sets, everyone can be a part of a movement, regardless of their how much time, their ability, what they're interested in. They can join and do a small part and do a big part of a grassroots movement. So when thinking about starting a grassroots movement, specifically around COVID and getting to zero COVID, it's really important to know where to start. So I'm going to walk through these 6 steps. First, are there others in your community, your neighborhood, your city, your state, your country that are already organizing? If so, find them. 2 is make sure that you have goals. There's again a famous saying that if you can't measure it, it didn't happen. I believe Bill Gates said that. So it's important to set goals from the beginning to know what you're aiming for, know where you're going, both high level and tangible goals. Third piece is find your people. So these are the individuals that are going to be the wind in your sails that are just going to propel this forward. And once you find the people, you have to motivate them to take action. Then you have to have them spread the word so it creates ripples of change throughout the community. And lastly, it's about enacting that change. And that's where you get to measure the goals. So I'm going to pause right here before I jump into, I'm going to go through each of these, and it's going to be interactive from here on out. Are there any questions about grassroots organizing? Feel free to type it into the chat real quick, or just come off mute. Either way. Cool. Well, it seems like everybody gets what Grassroots is about. I'd assume that since you joined the session. So we're going to start at number 1. Are there others already organizing? So this is where it's going to get interactive. So in the chat, are there others working towards CovidZero or zero COVID in your community? So it's a great question. Where would you look first if you were to find others in your community? What are some different areas that you would actually look for in your community? Where would you find them? So, got a question coming in. How do you get your confidence when you feel that you are an outsider in your community? That's a great question. And, that's a hard one. I think the first is, are there individuals that that have a shared belief system? I think it's important to connect with them first, and that demonstrates, one, that you're not alone. If they live in your community, and it can be a geographic community, it can also be a community of other professionals in the same industry, small business owners, whatever it might be. And then the second is uh, being okay with understanding that other individuals may not have the same beliefs as you do. Um, so I think that there's, so first, when looking at your community, let's take a geographic piece. where would you look to find others in your geographic community? What are some organizations maybe you would look for? Who are some individuals that you would look at? What are some maybe government entities to look for? So see a few coming in here. So we see one is organizing group of doctors, scientists, and engineers. So Nancy, that's a great one. So where do you find the group of doctors, scientists, and engineers? I would love for you to answer that question in here.
Hello.
Hey, Nancy.
Okay. Well, I met them by reading the media and through social media because they were advocating, like I was, for a mask mandate. So we joined forces, and one of them is the next politician, an opposition party leader, and he has all the media contacts, and so it's been good.
That's great. So just like one follow-up question. How did you, did you read a newspaper and then you email those individuals? Did you tweet at them? Like really tactically, how did you find them?
I created a Facebook group that is quite active. It's kind of Mask for Quebec. Okay. And right now there's more than 2,000 people. And so a journalist found me and he thought I was credible. And we started writing papers, and that's how I joined. So
that's great.
Articles, I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Definitely have to drop in some of those articles into the chat. I think people would love to see them.
Okay, sure.
So I think another place that's really beneficial, and I'm going to call Sarah. You've talked about mutual aid organizations.
Oh yeah.
If you're open for it, can you talk a little bit about how to identify what is a mutual aid organization, and how did you find out about them?
So I had no idea what a mutual aid organization was before COVID, but apparently they've been around for a really long time, and they had initially, I guess, started out kind of as like a financial lending thing to people who were like down and out in the neighborhood, just to help them out. But they've really evolved to be this whole just supportive network of human beings all helping each other through hard times. And I mean, some of them have specific focuses on, let's help you get whatever, food, money, just anything possible. But it's really basically a solidarity type thing. Solidarity.charity is like the one thing they always kind of promote. And so I've been fascinated by them. That so many have popped up regarding COVID, especially like when isolation was going on in quarantine, and just the whole idea of like, what can I do to help my fellow neighbor? And what do we do to help all these people who are losing their jobs because they have to quarantine? And so it's kind of like, the way some of them got started was just somebody wrote up a note and then started sticking it in their neighbors' mailboxes, and just kind of created this little neighbor pod. And I've been incredibly impressed with them. And I can put some links in these resources here into the chat here about them. But, it all starts with just talking to somebody, just, send a chat to them, pick up the phone, just introduce yourself to somebody and go from there and say, hey, I'm interested in this kind of a thing. I was wondering, do you need any help? Is there anything I can help you with? Are you stuck at home? Are you stuck at home alone? Do you need food? Can I? And if they don't need anything, say, hey, would you also be interested in helping out our fellow neighbor? Kind of a thing.
That's awesome. So I think one of the key things here is look, there's mutual aid organizations that could be already operating in your community. Google mutual aid your city. And then maybe there's professional organizations that are organizing small businesses. Maybe that are looking for support or that are advocating, right? Maybe there's healthcare workers that have created a union that are that are already advocating for CovidZero or zero COVID environment. And so that's one of the key pieces of any grassroots. Before starting exactly your own movement, see if there's others that are already working on it and reach out to them first. And so some good quick resources, one, Google is your friend. Google, zero COVID or CovidZero or COVID-19 organizations in your community. Look at the nonprofit community. So is there a Red Cross? Is there Catholic Charities? Or is there a food bank? Are there these different entities that are actively have volunteer programs, have some messaging that you agree with, that you can join forces with? That's one of the first pieces, because that means that you're joining an already existing piece that has momentum. Now, in every community, there may not be organizations that are moving forward on a zero COVID, elimination of COVID-19 agenda. If you don't find it, then it's time to find the people and to set your goals. So the next piece that we're going to talk about is really about setting your goals. So first, I want to talk about what are goals that are appropriate to set. No goal is too small or too big. Every individual is passionate about something. Just before jumping on this call, I was on the phone with a woman in San Diego, and she was really passionate about teaching individuals how to wear masks correctly. She's in the medical field in San Diego, and constantly sees people not wearing masks correctly. And she's just so fired up about making sure individuals know how to wear a mask. And that can be a campaign in itself. And so when talking with her, one of her goals was every individual that she knows in her network would receive an email to learn how to wear a mask, and share that with her network. And that's just one example of how an individual can take action on a very important goal. When looking at the spectrum of goals, as an organizer, you may be like, I want to change public opinion. My goal is to create a campaign for my jurisdiction, my community, my neighborhood that changes the opinion of that, we can eliminate COVID. Or it could be that, it's important to, save lives, protect against future illnesses, make sure individuals are saving their livelihoods, and we're building a better tomorrow. That could be your concept of a goal here. And that can change public opinion. You could advocate and set a goal to get a legislation enacted by a local city government, or by a statewide government, or by a nationwide government. So setting forth like your intended goals is going to be really important. And so this is where we're going to go into a breakout session. So Sarah, if you can help. So what we have is, when we pair you into a breakout room, I want you to talk with the other individuals in the room about what tangible goals would you potentially want to accelerate your efforts, and how would you measure those goals? So again, we'll drop this into the chat, but what tangible goals do you want for your community organizing efforts? What's going to be important for you? So we're going to do a quick—
Let me know when you want me to send them.
We're going to do a 5-minute breakout room. We'll call you back in, and then we'll have a few rooms share out. So be prepared, at least 1 or 2 rooms or individuals to share out at the end of it. Send them away, and we'll drop it into chat. Okay, as everyone is coming back, we're going to have a few different individual share outs. So if you want to raise your hand or type in the chat, like pick me, would love for individuals to share out what goals did they establish or are already working towards in their community. And kind of preceded this, so Jeremy, if you're comfortable coming off mute first, would love for you to share what the work you're doing in California.
Yes, thank you. Hi, folks. My name is Jeremy Payne. I'm an Associate Program Director at Equality California Institute. We are a statewide LGBTQ civil rights nonprofit out here in the state of California, working to advance the civil rights and social justice of the LGBTQ plus community. And one thing that I want to highlight in terms of the goals that we are setting for ourselves to bring this pandemic under control is working to disseminate COVID-19 information to the full spectrum of California's LGBTQ plus population. It's a very diverse community here in the state of California, a large population and diverse demographics within that. So we're giving special attention to Spanish speakers, transgender and gender nonconforming people, and LGBTQ plus people in communities of color. Those are communities that, of course, have much higher rates of COVID-19 transmission. So we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to increase individual knowledge about how to prevent spread and adopt harm reduction practices and behaviors. And though that may seem kind of something that we should have been doing early on, it is something that we've been doing early on, but just given the extent of COVID-19 in California, and especially in communities like Los Angeles County, where it is running rampant, we still have to do very early knowledge sharing and education on just prevention spread, harm reduction practices, wearing a mask. And so that is one of our main goals, and we're measuring our kind of outreach through various kind of communication metrics that we can have, peer-to-peer texting, the number of people we're texting. When it comes to virtual events, we have informational webinars, and we gauge engagement by the viewers and the attendees, and we can tag those folks based off their interest areas and continue to have ongoing engagement with these folks to kind of have a lasting impact and ensure that folks are picking up and learning and adopting practices to keep them safe. And that was a little long, but I'll end it there. And if folks have questions, please let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. I think one thing to highlight there is that's a really well built out campaign, and how Jeremy thought through long-term goals, but also how to measure those short-term goals of engagement, of reach is really important. And that's what makes it tangible. I see, I can't see the name, but I see hand raised. So if you have your hand raised, you can come off mute.
Hello. Hi, I'm Eugenia. I am in South Carolina, and as you may all know, South Carolina is one of the hot spots in the nation right now. We have a governor who's have been not really very stringent on the guidelines, and he have prioritized the opening and the commerce. So as a result, we have positivity rates between 25 and 30-something%. So we're struggling. And I'm a Gen Xer. I was a teenager when the HIV epidemics started. So I remember clearly how we were in high school or in middle school, and we were like, my school would have, I don't know, it was weekly or monthly sessions in which they would educate us about what the virus was, how it was transmitted, and what we could do to prevent the transmission. And that had a lot of impact. And many of my classmates ended up being either in health sciences or research. So I think that what we do, what we teach kids doesn't go to waste. So I'm thinking, basically my goals, and I'm very new in the group, is I want to do pamphlets. I basically want to do 3 pamphlets, one about explaining the virus, and the other one about explaining how to the strategies to prevent transmission, and one pamphlet to deal with vaccine hesitancy. And ideally, I want to do the pamphlets, do companion videos, and just connect with the different schools. and just print out that massively and just put it out there and get connected with the science teachers and basically tell them, look, give me 10 minutes every week of one of your classes and just blast this information over and over and over. And I am 100% sure those kids are gonna bring that information to the parents, because South Carolina, it has a very high incidence of anti-vaxxers. And so I think it's a compound problem. And I think the way you deal when the parent doesn't want to hear is you educate the kids and the kids will do the work. So that's what I'm thinking.
I love that. So I think one, if you're not already connected with Tiffany, I'm sure you are, make sure you're connected with Tiffany in this chat, and then we'll follow up with some other resources. So you don't have to create the pamphlet from scratch. We have access to a lot of resources through the community that can help you to tailor it to South Carolina. But so I think it's great to focus on tangible goals, right? Of outreach to X number of science teachers. Set a goal for yourself to do that, and then the outcome that you're hoping for, make sure that you anchor into that outcome of either total amount of individuals that have of reach, of knowledge gained, so then that you're aiming for something and you can measure it along the way. And so, yeah, and again, Tiffany in the chat just dropped in her Gmail address, her email address.
Oh, thank you so much, Tiffany.
Yeah, and this is why coming to sessions like this, you'll never know who you can collide into and then collaborate on. This is another example of why it's so important to see who else is doing the work in your community, because coming together is of the utmost importance. At the high level, it's really important to anchor into the why. So when organizing and setting goals, everything at the highest level, the North Star of the movement, is to save lives and to prevent illnesses. It's to save livelihoods, individuals' economic livelihoods, and to make sure that they're able to live a fulfilled life, and to build a new and better normal. And so when thinking about the goals, try to align them, broadly speaking, to these whys, to these goals. And that's what we're all talking about through this whole conference. So the third piece is finding your people. A grassroots campaign is really important to find the people that are going to take charge, that are going to support, that are going to spread the message. So when thinking about it as an individual or as an organization, I like to think about it as concentric circles. So if you're at the center, you have a second concentric circle that you have direct access to. These are your friends, your family, maybe organizations that you work with or organizations that you volunteer with. If you're representing an organization, think about this a little bit differently. Think about the staff, think about the board of directors that you have. Those will be the inner circle. And then you have all the volunteers and the other supporters, donors as the second circle. And then the last circle out this is where the magic actually starts to happen, because all of your inner circle connections have their connections, which allow you to help, educate them and put, word out onto social media platforms, et cetera, in those pieces. So when initially starting any grassroots campaign, it's great to think about what resources, what do you have right now? And it goes back to the beginning. Start where you are, use what you can. And what you have right now are individuals, organizations that you're directly tied to. And those individuals have individuals that they're tied to, organizations that they're tied to, that they can lean on and influence. And so when creating those concentric circles and writing down all of the individuals or organizations you have, I like to bucket into 3 different categories just to create some structure to that list. So you have individuals, these are your friends that are always going to be there to help out. You can call on them day and night, and they'll be classified as individuals. Then you're going to have local organizations or maybe national organizations that you're tied to, that you can help, that will be within that inner circle for you. And then the last category are movers, shakers, and influencers in the community. Generally, at least you'll have at least 1 or 2 movers and shakers in your community that hold a position of power, and those that power can influence many different individuals and other organizations. So initially, when it's really important to get out a spreadsheet, pull out a piece of paper, and start just writing down all of the different individuals, organizations, and any influencers that you are directly tied to. So for example, like if you're looking for science teachers, document out first the science teachers that you're directly tied to, get them on board, and then they have a network of other science teachers as well. And so we're going to do in chat, actually, I want to be mindful of time because we have a little bit to get through here. Who will you reach out to first? So write this down, and who will you reach out to first? You can drop it in chat. If you're kind of just thinking about it, I hope that you can find some inspiration from others in this session. So who's the first person or organization or mover and shaker that that you're going to reach out to first? For me, the first individuals that I reached out to were my actually my nanny share couple that were in our pod together. And they, we're all on board, and I wanted to be like, hey, I'm working on this, will you be on board? Who do you have connections to? And, because we both have 16-month-olds, and they were like, yes, we're all in, right? And so that's who I reached out to first. And then the second group of individuals that I started reaching out to were CEOs of nonprofits that work specifically in the healthcare space that I know in the Washington, D.C. area and the Phoenix area. So I'm curious, so Tiffany, I see that you said that you would first reach out to community organizers. If you're comfortable with it, Tiffany, would love you to come off mute. You're doing such great work in South Carolina. Can you talk about, do you remember, right when you were getting started, who were the first individuals that you were tied to, that you reached out to?
Yeah, so the first individuals I reached out to were community organizers, and I was able to reach out to them because I am a community organizer before the pandemic. So I have basically all of my friends, everybody I hang out with are community organizers or are involved in politics in some way. So if I did not have that connection, if that was not my line of work, I would have reached out to my pastor first, which he was one of the first people I reached out to as well. So I would have reached out to my pastor and family members, because you don't know who your family is connected to. So for instance, my uncle, his next door neighbor and his best friend for over 40 years is the president of the Urban League here in Columbia. So if I was not a community organizer, I would think about that immediately. I would say, oh, I don't know who to reach out to, but I can just start with family, contact my uncle and say, can you get me in touch with your neighbor? Because he has a group and this message may resonate with him and what his organization is doing. So if you do not have community organizing background and people that you already know that's on the ground community organizing, definitely within the circle that you have, whether it's family, friends, think about where they work at And if the work that they do align with what you're trying to do, I would contact them. If you go to church, you can definitely reach out to your pastor, who can definitely get in touch with other faith leaders and the congregation. And also, I would look at any organizations you're a part of. Some people are part of like the Sierra Club or the United Way, or just a lot of service organizations that you could be a part of. You can reach out to them and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Do you think this organization would be, this can fit in our platform? And you can also reach out to other organizations through them as well.
That's great. Thank you, Tiffany. And I think one of the kind of one key point that I want to highlight that Tiffany talked about was the fact that find individuals or organizations that have alignment. They don't have to be 100% the same idea that you're working on, but are they aligned? That's really important. And I also see a great chat happening. Weiss, I think one of the key things in Chicago, so there are a few groups that are really that are doing some great work in Chicago. I think they're actually on here. I saw them. They're running the Wear a Mask campaign, I believe. They're based in Chicago. So after this we'll drop in the link, or Sarah, if you can drop in a link, that would be make good together. That's what I was thinking about. Yes, thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah,
they're based in Chicago. So make sure Weiss will get you connected. They're doing great work there. And so once you find the individuals, it's about now having them take action. So you called your friends, your family, or saying, hey, like, I'm really passionate about elimination of COVID, and I believe we can do it in our neighborhood. I believe we can do it in our city. I believe we can do it in our country. What next? How can they get involved? So here's the question is like, what will you ask people to do? And I think this is where many different organizers actually, they get individuals on the phone, and they're like, oh, wait, what's my ask? And so a pro tip, as this is something that I've told all of my startup founders that I've worked with, always have your top 3 to 5 asks in your back pocket at all times. And legitimately, for a few years, I had a piece of paper of like the top 5 things that I was focused on, the goals that I was working towards that month or that quarter or that year. And when I would be having a conversation, I would mentally think about, okay, I'm having this conversation. This individual seems bought in, loves the work that we're doing, loves my enthusiasm. How can they join? What can they do? So think about, what are you going to ask people to do? And so the kind of 3 key asks I like to bucket things in is really join, share, or advocate. And the reason why I like to think about it as join is like, join me, join this movement, join this group I'm part of, and come to sessions, be a volunteer, be a council member, be a board member, whatever it might be. Share is like, look, you have a great, large network. Can you share this message out? Can you share it amongst your friends, family, community? And then advocate is, can you advocate to our local business community? Can you advocate to our local health community? Can you write them letters? And when I use the word advocate, it's not just to government entities, but it's about it's advocating for a change of behavior to an organization, a group, and it could be to the local, state, or federal government. So when thinking about joining a team, or when thinking about joining, the first thing, especially if you're just getting started, is you can't go it alone. You gotta create a team. And so really the kind of key aspect here is, when you're creating a team, what are other individuals going to join the team and do? And so here's some just suggested roles. This creating a team is not a one size fit all, because you bring some certain skill sets that nobody else possesses. And so that's great. You have to document what you bring, but no one individual can have it all. And so this is important, where you bring in other individuals with a multitude of different skill sets that can be complementary. So here's some of them, such as marketing and communications. Maybe have like an individual who is that main community lead. Or maybe there's an individual who has, community organizing experience and advocacy experience previously. Leverage that. They might, have written letters to senators and local mayors previously. Make sure that you can have them join and say, hey, look, I really need support on being the advocacy lead, or maybe a volunteer organizer. And by assigning this role, this is where they're immediately going to have agency and take action. So that's going to be really, really important for as you're building your team. When it's very nebulous, I think individuals tend to not be as engaged when they don't have some agency and when they don't feel as though that they're adding value. So always make sure as an organizer that you're creating an environment that individuals feel as though that they're adding a lot of value, and that their voice is heard, and that they have agency to execute on any of the strategies that you're working on together. The second kind of piece is, like, let's say, well, I should also note, if they're joining the team, that typically one of the first questions you ask is, how many hours do they have to give in a given week, month? And if they have enough hours, that's where joining the team is probably the heaviest lift. If they have, if it's a mover and shaker or an individual who's running an organization, consider setting up a council or an advisory council. So these are made up of groups of individuals that have insight into your community. It could be a president of a foundation, could be the president of a local school board or PTA, parent-teacher administration, to identify that as a council member. These individuals typically have maybe 1 hour, 30 minutes a week, and setting up a council is not a requirement. But as you're thinking about which bucket to put people in, this way you can count on them as an advisor, and they can take action, and they can provide you valuable insights that maybe previously you wouldn't have had otherwise. Other things that they are able to do is that they're able to leverage their connections to help build the movement in your community. So one of the first steps with like motivating individuals to take action is, I just want to recap here, is build a team, build an advisory board, if that's appropriate. And please note here that not all communities have to have a council. It just helps amplify the work. It's not a requirement. Then you can recruit volunteers, and then making sure that you start creating localized messaging that's tailored to your community. And again, that goes back to the goals. Is it aligned with the goals that you want to see happen? And ultimately, this is to build the movement in the community. And so how does this, sorry, I see a question. I'm just gonna ping back to the advisory council real quick before I talk about that. So on the advisory council, it can be as big as you want or as small as you want. It really depends on the action and the scope. I've worked with some advisory councils that have had, there's this organization in Chicago, actually, not specifically related to COVID, but in the startup community, that has 85 council members. It's a lot to manage, but those 85 council members are made up of C-suite individuals of all the major businesses in Chicago. They bring a lot of clout, and it has become an opportunity for not only the council members to get to know one another and share insights, but also help forward this cause, and most importantly, help forward the cause that they're working on in economic development. But I've also seen councils be 3 to 5 individuals. There's, if it's a more localized effort, all you need is like 1 to 2 individuals, 3 individuals that represent different entities. So if I were building a local group in my neighborhood in Washington, D.C., I would identify, so there's a great spot called Call Your Mother Bagels, which is really well known in my neighborhood. I'd have the business owner there represented. I would have the local PTA school board member represented, and I would have my local advisory neighborhood commissioner on that council, because between those three individuals in my community, they're the ones that would give me the most insight of what they're hearing in the business world, in the school world, and in the government world. And so ultimately, you're building this, and your community can be as big and as small as you want, but those local influencers, organizations, and individuals that then can be influenced by the advisory council are ultimately trying to achieve two things. One, changing public opinion and moving government officials, but also making sure that like neighborhood action is taking place for social pressure to support one another and take smart actions. And so the government and public opinion will reinforce, and it becomes a self-perpetuating cycle here. So before I move on to the next spreading of the word, any questions on motivation of the people, or any insights, if Briggs is still here, from Tucson, of how you've motivated individuals to take action? Okay, we'll move forward then. So the next piece is getting the word out. So getting the word out, yeah, is Vicky. I know before we move on, can you share one or two things that you've done to enable individuals to take action?
Sorry, was that a question for me?
Yeah, and it's hard to hear you.
Sorry, I was just getting my food. Yeah, what I did to get individuals to take action. Honestly, the first thing I did was listen to them, listen to what was important to them. In my case, I had a lot of conversations with parents who were forced to send their children to school while the schools weren't. They didn't actually implement any safety measures, not even masks. So what we did there was we made an info pack for the parents, so they could reach out to the schools themselves. So we gave them all the information, all the studies that they needed to have this conversation, to open up the conversation, really. And some did that with the teachers, some did that with the schools, and some wanted to take it higher up and decided to reach out to the Ministry of Education. So that was really a great way to get the people into action. And it was all based on just listening to them and hearing what was important to them. I feel that is the most important thing when it comes to getting people into action, that they know why, that you realize what is driving them, really. And
That's
that
great.
created a massive change. Some parents were able to um, yeah, they managed to keep their kids at home without being prosecuted by the government, because that was happening all over the place. Um, a completely different thing that we did to get people into action was make them realize that the media was also kind of scrambling for information. There was so much studies being published that they kind of had to be guided um, to the right ones, really. Also because the government was spreading misinformation. So we got people to reach out to journalists, both national and regional, and that had a massive effect. We really were able to change the media landscape by doing so and by enabling people to take that action themselves.
I love that. I hope that inspired other individuals to think about how they can motivate individuals. And I really love the point of like, whenever you're making an ask of individuals, make sure that it's one, you listen to them first and then tailor the ask to where their passion areas and where they can add benefit. So now I see this is already popping off in the chat. So Nancy and Chris, you're right on it in how to have the community take action and get the word out. So some first key areas is, one, you can encourage individuals to write letters and emails to leaders. That's direct, one-to-one contact. You can encourage individuals to pick up the phone and text or call leaders, or text and call their neighbors, right? Saying, hey, how are you doing? Is everything okay? Are you, do you need masks? And checking on those individuals to make sure that they have the resources and tools and knowledge that they need to move forward. And last, and definitely 100%, this is what Chris and Nancy were talking about, social media. And so a lot of organizing is happening on social media, and this creates social proof and gets more individuals in on the platform. So definitely take advantage of social media. So, and we already have this happen going off. What are some of the channels and methods that you think would work in your community for spreading, for getting the word out? If you want to, okay, so media, definitely. And I think Nancy had a really good, she talked about this earlier, of how she was able to find connections in with the media. Jeremy, 100% personal trusted conversations. So one-to-one conversations are really, while everybody's going for how do we get the word to millions of people, some of the most impactful ones are having that direct and trusted conversation with friends, family, and connections that you have. Charu is talking to experts. And then we got Karen, yeah, successful demonstration projects with media coverage. So what about, so when thinking about channels, what are the different mediums that you talk through? Like, would it, in your community, are individuals on Slack? Are they on WhatsApp? Are they on LinkedIn? What are some of the channels that you think that you could help spread and get the word out? Reddit, great. We've seen, if anybody has been seeing the power of Reddit, if anybody's been following the GameStop shenanigans, it's been, I don't know, kind of entertaining to watch, in my opinion. But yeah, Reddit is a great one. Neighborhood apps, yes, like Nextdoor, Twitter, YouTube. So these are all different channels that you can communicate with your local community. Other areas, and it doesn't have to be digital, right? Like some of the most effective ways are flyers, right? You can print out a flyer, post it around telephone poles. You can slip it under individuals' doors, just up and down your street. And that can just start sparking the conversation. Supermarket info boards, that's great. Some other ideas, just wanted to highlight them. You could host panel discussions and webinars. You can, jump on Twitter for sure, but set up a Twitter chat around it. Or if anybody's familiar with Clubhouse, it's a new emerging social media tool that allows you to host rooms and have other people join. And it's growing like really, really quickly right now. And so that's maybe your community that you work with and that you're advocating with. Maybe they're early adopters of Clubhouse. Check it out. I love sending holiday cards, 100%. Sending, think about the upcoming holidays or things that are happening, and leverage those events. So ultimately, it's about enacting change. And meetups, yep, 100%. Like, check out meetups; those are great. Ultimately, it's about enacting change. And so, going back to setting those goals, one, want to highlight that, like, as you enact change, you should be able to tie the change that you're seeing in your community back to the goals that you set at the beginning. Thanks, Tiffany. We'll see you. We will, you have to find your individuals, then you have to motivate the people to take action, and you have to get the word out, and you have to then see the change and enact it. And the change that we're all advocating for is 0 positive cases, 0 hospitalizations, 0 deaths. And we're looking to save lives, prevent illnesses, save livelihoods, and create a new and better normal for tomorrow. So at a high level, it's like some of the key points that I just want to highlight for a plan, very broadly speaking, is one, we have to use the strongest action possible to prevent transmission, have to rapidly test, isolate cases, we have to ensure livelihood for all, and we have to ensure rapid vaccination program as well. And many different actions fall under this. Strongest action for prevention. This is advocating to local schools. This can be from a neighbor by neighbor standpoint. And it can be a statewide standpoint. It can be a federal level standpoint. I love writing on chalk. That's great. So, but I want to highlight that you're not at this alone. So while this presentation was about organizing your community, these are just 4 of the groups that are represented on this call right now, and there's many more that have your back, have resources. So we have CovidZero.us, we have In Coronavirus, we have Zero COVID Alliance, we have COVID Action Group, and Sarah has dropped in a ton more, but like, you're not at this alone. We have the resources, so you don't have to feel that you're alone. You don't have to feel that you're having to create everything from scratch. It probably has already been created before, and we can point you in the right direction for the action that you want to take in your community. And so some of the kind of key resources that we have that we'll send out after this is, we have, incoronavirus.org, check out that website. CovidZero.us, check out that website, specifically for community organizing in the US. CovidZeroAlliance.org, they're building an alliance of many groups that are advocating for zero COVID. We have a set of mentors. So Tiffany is a mentor, Briggs is a mentor in the US that are building momentum and have built momentum in their community advocating for zero COVID. Make sure we have pre-written marketing language ready for you to use. We also have the Slack group if you're not already part of it. And we would love for you all to join there, because that's where, if you're encountering a barrier or have any questions, you can ping us right there. Have groups of individuals that are organizing their communities, or that have encountered similar challenges, or are there to share in your wins there. We also have a community organizing playbook. Happy to share that out. We have that Slack channel and volunteer, so you can sign up to volunteer here. And then we have weekly community action meetings every Tuesday. So look out on social channels, and that we'll post that to the Slack channel as well. So at that point, we have a few minutes here. What questions? We have so many different organizers on this call that I'm sure there's going to be some questions or barriers that you have faced that others can answer for you. So feel free to come off mute and ask a question, or ask it in chat, and I can volley it to the right individual.
Hello, this is Sharonda Williams, and I believe, am I saying your name right? Is it Seifer?
It is, yeah.
Okay, Yes, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insight on this matter, because this is something that I'm looking for my area, and I needed some best practices to guide me to start it in my area. So I saw someone put a website, I think it's zerocovidalliance.org. Would you say that would be the best place for me to start, or would it be the in coronavirus for resources?
Yeah, that's where are you located?
Augusta, Georgia.
So I think a great, I think the first place to start, and Vicky, you can chime in here. Sarah, you can chime in here. But so first and foremost, check out CovidZero.us. And we have a series that we have that community organizer handbook there for you to leverage. But then the other place is the weekly community calls will be really good. Vicky, Sarah, Briggs.
I just put apparently it's Augusta Mutual Aid Confederation. It's a brand new community organization aiming to build solidarity in the city. That's just one of the ones. I'll add some more links in here.
And then
I think endcoronavirus.org is a great place to start when you're looking for resources, but it really depends on what you're looking for. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, right now, it's funny. I was looking for a phone number and a website. However, it led me on this trail to connect with Tiffany as well as the endcoronavirus.org. And so I was speaking with, I believe it was Nancy in my group, regarding how to connect with people to find what is going on in Augusta already. I don't feel that I'm the first person to hear this information in Augusta, and it may already be happening, but I just need to find how to find them. So I really thank you, Sifa, for saying use Google, what have you, because the people that I thought would be a part of this movement, if you will, it has not responded, or they have not shared, if you will, a similar interest in wanting to move in this direction. So I'm still searching.
I did add a couple more links in the chat. I can also help you find what people are doing in your area that you can connect with to get started with all this stuff.
So yeah, I think that's so.
Well, sorry, I was on mute. I was going to say thank you.
I'm just thinking something out of the blue. What about unions? There's some unions who've been really affected by COVID, and also a support group for people who have problems paying the rent, or what have you. People who've been particularly affected by COVID. You might have some people who want to join this fight with you. Just a thought.
That's kind of what these mutual aid groups are all about, kind of like helping people pay the rent. One of the things they can do, just finding people who just want to help in their communities and just want to, whether it's the littlest thing, whether it's taking, trying to advocate for policy changes. I cannot recommend these mutual aid groups enough. I think they're just such a phenomenal resource, and it's really kind of been neat to see them really come to fruition and get more popular because of this.
Briggs, I see that your hand is raised. Do you want to come off mute?
Sure. I think it's a huge part of the work that we've done in Tucson has been fact finding. So in order to answer the question about what's going on in the community, we started a little focus group to really get information exchange going. Different people came each week to meet with our core little team, which also grew in that period of time. People who were in the neighborhood of focus joined the group from connecting to us through the focus group. I also think it's really important to acknowledge challenges which didn't come up too much today, but there are challenges. One is the time scale of taking on this advocacy work. It's not a quick return at this time. I think that there's a feeling that we could create a social movement and that we'll get past a tipping point. But to that point, it's a challenge to approach people and get them to adopt the zero COVID message. So honing your understanding of what you're advocating for, getting more educated about what the pathway to zero is, and then chipping away at small successes in your community, in your sphere of skill set and influence and connection. Keeping in perspective small successes versus your big picture advocacy, understanding that it is hard for people to embrace a zero COVID. And one of our goals in Tucson is trying to bring other people who are doing the work of the pandemic under this umbrella of this vision that your work is part of a solution because you're doing the work, and grow this solution-based thinking for our community.
Couldn't agree more. And I love the celebrating every little win, and fully expecting obstacles and barriers. And that's where having a team can be really helpful, because as you have days where you're feeling like you're pushing a boulder up a hill, there'll be other team members who are feeling motivated and can help motivate you, and have your back. And so that's why having a team is so important. So great. Are there any more questions, reflections? Nancy, I loved what you shared at the start and how you got movement going in Quebec. So that's so great to hear. And no, I just want to say to everyone on this session that you're not alone, and that we'll send out some more resources, and my contact, that's my direct email address if you're ever feeling alone or just want to have a response. I'm here. So really, sincerely, like I'm so thankful for every single action, no matter how small it may seem. That's how we move this forward, and that's how we eliminate and eradicate COVID. So thank you all for joining this. And I'm here to hang out for another few minutes. So that's, I think, the official end. So if we can put Sarah, can we put a link to the Slack group in here just to make sure?
Yes, we can. Let me bring it up here. Oh, as soon as I find it. Yep, I'm wildly prepared. All right, here we go. Oh, cool. So this is to the CCAS Slack channel for this particular workshop, if people want to continue the discussion.
Hi, I don't have much experience with the program Slack. Sometimes I don't find it very intuitive. Like, I just find out this morning that I have received 3 messages and I never noticed the messages. So how, like, is there a tutorial or something?
You're not the only one.
Yeah. So I mean, so Slack. I mean, it's a. Well, I'm getting a little bit of feedback, but Slack is a. Actually, can individuals go off? Yeah, thank you. So Slack is, it may not be the most intuitive channel. I think it's, primarily used for, business applications. But I think this is where, so Slack is where the in coronavirus community is, and where the session is, and where the CCAS conference is. But I just want to highlight like that for your community, for South Carolina, don't use Slack if you don't find it intuitive. I have an individual using Facebook groups or individual using LinkedIn groups. I have someone who's using WhatsApp as a primary form. There's individuals on Discord. And so it's really about finding the communication channels that work there. But so Slack, one of the key things that I find helpful is one, if you can install it on your phone, I find that probably more intuitive than anything on the computer. And like, you don't have to have a separate browser. So it comes on iOS and on Android. So you can install it there and you can enable notifications on and off. I personally turn my notifications off because it can get very overwhelming very quickly. So, and also again, this goes back to how I think about at the very beginning of how do I create headspace for myself, my family, and focus on the pieces that I'm working forward as much as possible. And so that's my 2 cents of Slack. Some individuals, love having everything there. So. Cool. Well, if there's any other questions or comments, we're here.
But in for a little bit. On the Zero COVID Alliance, you can find a list of already existing groups. We are now in so many different countries that there's a real chance that if you look at it, there's already a group in your country. So do reach out. There are links to their own websites, to their social medias. And they would all love to get more people on board because the more the merrier, and we need everyone on board. So do check it out. I posted the website in the chat earlier.
And I just posted a link to the next session. It starts in 11 minutes if people want to start heading on over there.
That's awesome. Well, I'll see everybody over on the next session. Thank you everybody for joining. It's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you, and I'm very excited for the work that y'all are doing, and together we can eliminate COVID. Yeah,
and we'll be posting the chat in the into the Slack workspace so you all can get links out of it. All right, cool. I'm going to kick you all out now. Have a great day, you guys.